Hello fellow YouTubers and especially my fellow Queenslanders. I'm producing these videos so there is an official record of my complaint in the metaverse. One of my father's favourite sayings was, knowledge is power, and another was never give a mug a break. His thoughts after a life of experience was that these individuals always come back to bite you. My mother also drummed in her many ideas. One of her favourites was, it's always better to lead than to follow. My siblings and I are all very independent, and ultimately we understand that blood is thicker than water. Friends would always laugh at what it was like to sit around our kitchen table as politics and individual ideas were debated with lots of emotion. We were brought up to challenge authority, to question ideas and to form our own opinions. My parents were German, which when you understand the thought process, everything is either black or white. We were taught endurance, mental strength and compassion. My father would start these debates, but then he would moderate. Funny looking back at it now. My parents were in business, which meant you learn to accept punches, and ultimately, where there is a will, there is a way. The developer come lawyer, or let's say lawyer come developer, let's call him Jim. Jim, soon after signing the agreement in 1985 to purchase 43A Goldersley Road, or Lot 2, went about investigating different options or opportunities, and then, through these investigations, discovered the property immediately to the west was literally landlocked and owned by a family called Gallagher. It was another golden opportunity. Jim learned the Gallagher property was impossible to get to unless you owned Lot 2, the property Jim had just purchased. Having no scruples, Jim had two options. I believe his preferred option was to try and acquire the land below market value. Or option 2 was to perhaps sell the landlocked property, the Gallagher family, access to their own land. 28 years later, I uncovered the truth. Jim, together with his design team, an architect and surveyor, began negotiations with the Brisbane City Council. The initial proposal was to build a townhouse development, which was rejected, and then ultimately the current land subdivision began to take form. One problem was the property entrance. Lot 2, facing Goldersley Road, was only 7 metres wide. A development of this magnitude had to meet town planning requirements that required its main access road into the estate to be able to cope with 100 traffic movements a day and to be able to accept both outgoing and incoming traffic, which meant the main carriageway had to be at least 6 metres wide with 4 metres of green space either side, which was to provide privacy and a sound barrier or buffer to existing neighbours and to accommodate services such as water, underground power and telecommunications into the estate. Interestingly, these drawings, drafted in 1985-86, were done manually as computer-aided drafting, or CAD, was in its infancy. Ultimately, Lot 2 had the right to traverse Lot 1's land. However, the right of way easement agreement drafted between Raymond Burnt and his sisters was just that, a simple agreement that allowed access only. Not to be deterred, Jim pressed ahead and redesigned the front entrance with a 6 metre wide carriageway or road with 4 metres of green space either side. This meant that Lot 1, our land or Raymond Burnt's land, legally owned a triangular piece of land, effectively 50% of the entrance into the proposed estate. This meant that Jim would be forced to negotiate with Raymond. Why would Raymond want to negotiate with Jim? The only possible benefit would be to help his sisters close the sale so they could benefit from their auntie's inheritance. Secretly behind the scenes, Jim, the lawyer, come developer, was acutely aware of the opportunity which lay to the west, the landlocked parcel of land. How does one take advantage of this huge opportunity without letting those with vested interests know? Raymond owned 50% of the entrance. It was this dilemma 35 years later that greed is still the basis of all of our suffering. And you can take this to the bank. A leopard doesn't change his spots. Jim proved the same again in 2010, and the Illuminati came to the rescue. At the time, I had no idea I was playing snakes and ladders. However, I do have endless patience. Back to the story. Negotiations continued between the architect, the surveyor, and the Brisbane City Council's planning department, and eventually hand-drafted plans were finalised and were nearing completion. The only way forward, or the simplest way forward, was to develop Lot 2 as the body corporate or group title plan would inherit the easement access over the 50% portion of the entrance owned by Raymond Burnt, which meant that each prospective lot purchased within the estate would also inherit that same right. It would also mean that landscaping, the green space and maintenance would involve a small fee divided up amongst future property owners. The plan highlighted the original 11 lots within the proposed group title plan. The common property, the carriageway or the road into the estate, complete with the necessary 4 metres of proposed green space on either side of the main entrance onto Goldersley Road. These negotiations with the Brisbane City Council are on the public record. However, you will find them on our website www.whentheftislegal.org. It is important to remember this development application at the time and its success is the basis for the purchase of Lot 2 for $250,000 from Raymond's sister. The contract was on condition of a Brisbane City Council approval. It was one separate development application. This application was formally submitted to the Brisbane City Council on the 10th of March 1987. One day earlier, however, Jim's surveyor on the 9th of March 1987 wrote a letter to the Brisbane Council's planning office advising the council that Ibenbub Proprietary Limited, Jim's development company, would apply for a separate easement that would be required over the common property of the proposed group title plan from the entrance at Goldersley Road to the neighbouring Gallagher property to the west. It was rather vague in hindsight and was the first time any documentation ever referred to the land to the west, and it was never part of any agreement between Raymond Burnt or his sisters. Everybody trusted the lawyer Jim. Jim, with all his cunning, would take advantage of those who trusted him, and he decided he would solve his greedy problem by blurring two separate development applications together to baffle people, those involved investigating the estate, and especially the Department of Natural Resources that issued the title and the pen pushers at the Brisbane City Council. Jim would speak with a forked tongue to everyone involved through misinformation. Everybody trusted the lawyer. Please help me make this story public by sharing this video any way you can. I am not a social media expert. 5 years ago, I discovered that the Queensland government influenced social media platforms to hide my story. It had become obvious as no one ever responded, either journalists or via Twitter or other social media platforms. It is Orwellian beyond belief, as you will come to realise as this story unfolds. It is a massive cover-up of mammoth proportions. Please remember to like every video so we improve its algorithms for sharing purposes, and please subscribe to my channel. It is very important. You will also discover the email and contact information of every politician in Queensland. It is important to let them know you're aware and this is no longer a state secret. Please sign the petition at our website whentheftislegal.org via the link to change.org, seeking a royal commission into the judiciary in Queensland. So to expose the Queen of Cover-Up, our Premier. And if inclined, please leave a donation to help fund this venture, as I need help. I need your help. See you again soon, and always remember, she'll be right, mate. Never fear, Randolph is here. Say Jun. That's for our Chinese friends here in Queensland. And thank you for listening to me.